when you're scaling, you're growing. But when you're growing, you're not necessarily growing at scale. And that's typically what happens, is that people grow without understanding scale, and they end up with a lot more activity and a lot more volume, maybe a lot more revenue, but not necessarily a lot more profit.
Hey, welcome to 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. We're a father-son leadership team where we talk with other lifelong learners about making an impact and solving big problems. And, the makeup team in the green room, the hairstylist and wardrobe wardens. Is that what it is? A wardrobe warden? Wardrobe?
I don't know what their title is, but if I was that, I'd want to be called a wardrobe warden. That sounds awesome.
I'm thinking that when we roll the credits at the end of the show, Camden, we'll just rename it to wardrobe warden.
There we go. First, we got to hire one, but yeah.
I like that. Well, I've already got one. She's downstairs right now. She wears a lot of hats around this team. So
yes, sir.
Wardrobe warden. It sings.
It does.
It sings. So
can't go wrong with the alliteration.
Folks, you heard it here first on the 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis, that if you are a wardrobe warden, submit your resumes via Camden at tribe-purpose.com for review and possibilities in the future. So,
So we need 3 though, because we got to get 1 in Colorado, 1 in Arizona, and then we'll have 1 that just travels around all the guests.
There we go.
Yeah,
that'd be a hell of a budget.
Look, I'm just the idea guy. All right.
Well, we've run across that problem many times. And speaking of budgets, our good friend Courtney joining us today. Courtney, how you doing?
I am doing well, Otis. Hey, Cam. How are you guys today?
Doing well.
Yeah. Well, I was going to get into some fancy segue about financial support and wealth management, but you know what? I'm not as interested in that as I am in your definition or opinion of scaling, because so many people talk about business growth and scaling. Walk us through what it means to you before we get into your approach.
Yeah. So I do think scaling and growth are 2 different things. And so when we talk about scaling, we're talking about being able to do more, deliver more services, earn more revenue without the same increase in your people and your operational costs, because you've built systems and you've developed leaders and delegation frameworks that allow you to do more as you grow. So when you're scaling, you're growing, but when you're growing, you're not necessarily growing at scale. And that's typically what happens, is that people grow without understanding scale, and they end up with a lot more activity and a lot more volume, maybe a lot more revenue, but not necessarily a lot more profit. And instead, they usually have a lot more chaos and craziness, and they wonder, why did I even want this? So that's how we look at scale, when you're really, not increasing your costs and your complexity at the same pace that you are your revenue.
I think there's kind of 2 different, schools of thought when it comes to scaling versus the growth stage, like you mentioned. And one of them that we had, blanking on his name, Preston Brown, actually, I got it. Preston Brown, we had him on the show. He had this great line. We get the clip that goes around all the time of how do you build a big, efficient business? Well, you don't. You build a big business, then you make it efficient. I think there's a lot of people out there who hear people talk about scalability and are thinking really, really big, and they try to build a scalable business, and they don't necessarily go through that growth stage, which is where you really kind of build out a lot of the systems that you need to carve up in order to make it, more scalable. But there's something to that building process. Could you talk a bit about like why that growth stage is important, why you can't skip it just straight to scalability?
Yeah, well, I think that there are two things that can sometimes feel like they are counterintuitive. So innovation and systemization. And so if you're in startup mode, you're still innovating on your product and your customer and your delivery method and your pricing. You're testing all kinds of things, and you're not ready to systematize anything yet because you don't know what works. But once you find your customer and your product and you've started to get past the startup mode, you're moving into what we call scale up mode. And in scale up mode, the risk here is that you stop innovating and you systematize everything, which might make you incredibly efficient, but you might lose sight of being relevant to your customers as the world changes around you. So you actually have to be able to balance both systemization and innovation if you want to continue to grow and scale. So being aware of both of these things and recognizing that it's not one or the other in scale up, it's both.
Do you think that those, you mentioned them kind of being like counterintuitive to each other. Do you think they are actually at odds, or do they just feel like that to us? Like does Otis need to do one thing and I do the other so that we don't mess with each other, or what?
I'm glad you asked that, Camden, because we all as humans have different gifts, strengths, and abilities. And we do different assessments with our team, with our clients within our Scaling Leader coaching program. One of the assessments we love to do is called COLBY, and it measures your cognitive strengths. It's how you instinctively take action. And so there's 4 different modes of action, and each of us leads with one of them. And so some of us lead with the quick start mode. It means that we love to innovate. The way we feel about risk, change, and uncertainty is bring it on. And so people who have that gift can't help but innovate. People who lead with the COLBY follow through domain lead with systematize. They can't help but create systems and frameworks and processes that organizes things. So knowing what your strength is, your cognitive strength, what you lead with, and then being in a role that leverages that is what's going to get you the most done. But when you're in scale up, you can't have everyone as a high quick start, or you'll have innovation all over the place and you'll never get to scale. But you can't have everybody who systematizes, or you'll get stagnant. So you have to know that there are these different strengths, plus there's 2 other ones, 2 other modes, but you have to know what those are and where you need them within the organization. And we can all work outside of those natural strengths. I lead with quick start. So I love innovation, change, risk, uncertainty. I can work outside of that, but it'll take more of my energy and it won't be as fun and fulfilling. And so
might be a little boring.
So yeah, I think that the way that you get to this, the way that you have both of these happening at once, is by intentionally getting your cast of characters coverage across these different strengths and gifts, aligning them with the right roles that would be driving those things. So you're not going to have a product developer who's high systematized. You might have an operations executive who's high systematized, and your product development leader probably needs to be full of innovation and be able to collaborate with somebody who can operationalize it. So it's both, but we aren't all wired to be able to go between those different ways of thinking and taking action seamlessly.
Yeah, that's thanks for sharing that. And as a just for our listeners and watchers, that will be in the show notes, a link to that system, so that you can hint make sure we get that in the show notes, because I love that analogy, and we have not talked about that before. And what you were reminding me of is one of our clients that I snicker at it, because they were so worried about creating systems in the startup mode, it was costing them truly a crap ton of capital, and it was limiting their ability to grow to get to the scaling mode. Have you experienced that with some clients recently or in the past?
Yeah, this definitely happens when you have people who are wired that way, or maybe they've come from a big, established, mature organization and they think that that's the norm and that's what we have to get to. And so that can absolutely drag things down. It can also frustrate the people who are systematizers, because when you're in startup mode, whether you create a system or not, you're still figuring things out. So I promise it's going to change daily, weekly. And so the people who are like, well, I thought we got this figured out, get so frustrated that we have to keep changing it. The other thing that we have people understand is that there are really kind of three different levels of structure. So there's systems, and there are processes, and there are SOPs or procedures. And so SOPs or procedures, those are like step by step, almost like a recipe. You're giving someone detailed instructions to execute something. A process is really a next click up, and it's how things flow. And then a system is usually a whole connection of different processes. And so you have to keep that in mind as well. A lot of people go straight to SOPs. And so they're documenting every little step that people need to do. And those expire rapidly as well, because the things we're using change, the tools we're using change, and we can get lost in all of the details of SOPs and not even know the flow of a process of how things actually flow through the organization. And so that's another thing to keep in mind when it's just clarity around these different levels of structure when we are ready to systematize.
Oh yeah, it's funny because in the Army we were all about SOPs. Got to have an SOP for this, an SOP for that, an SOP. Golly, and I would say at least 50% of them, by the time you finished writing them, it was like, all right, change one. Even if usually, truthfully, it wasn't as soon as you finished writing them. It was more like change five as you're finishing up writing them. Because, yeah, it's just I think it was just a military way of wanting to document things. What do you tell a client that has the bookshelf of all the SOPs? When you walk in that shop, that office, and you see that, what's your gut telling you right then?
Yeah, so usually what that means is that you have trained your team to be responsible for tasks instead of results. When we give people step-by-step directions, do this, do that, click here, send this, then do this, we are teaching them that we want them to do these tasks. And when you've done these tasks, you're done. Instead, if you want to scale your organization, if you want things to not be fully dependent on you at the center of everything, to be able to grow your revenue without growing all of your costs operationally and people-wise, you have to be able to delegate results and outcomes. And people with tunnel vision on SOPs are usually not thinking about the outcomes. I did the things. Well, did it get the result we wanted? I don't know, but I did the things. And so that is usually the frustration that you'll see if you come across someone who's done the hard work of documenting all of these SOPs, is that they're so frustrated because they think, I can't give anybody anything. We feel like we need to control it, right? It's like, oh, I told them exactly how to do it, but I'm still not getting it done the way I wanted to. You're probably getting it done the way you told them to, but that's not translating to the results because there's a disconnect. There's usually judgment. There's usually situational things that might change where this SOP is no longer relevant, that totally, goes over someone's head when we have them focused on executing tasks instead of understanding and owning results.
Mhm. How much of that, because I think the thing that comes to mind talking about like, building out the systems and going through the SOPs and all that is something we talk about with like planning versus like taking action, which is the planning process, the systemizing process might be in some ways more important than the system itself, because it gives you so much clarity on what's going on with it and allows you to, kind of re-innovate on top of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious that problem you're talking about there, people kind of getting stuck with that. What comes to mind for me is, and I guess, most good leaders would probably do this instinctually, like kind of like you were hinting at there, but is giving them the ownership over innovating in that area. Of not, hey, here's your task list, go through these. Hey, Courtney, I need you to do those 20 things. But after you do it once, then you can start playing with it. We can do these different things here. We can kind of keep going with it. And that's a way of getting them more bought into the results rather than the process. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. As long as they understand the results we're going for. And that's sometimes what we as leaders forget to convey. An example we love to talk about is, because this happens in goals versus projects as well. So if you think about, what we're talking about is SOPs and processes and how you execute things in your business. But the same thing happens when you do strategic planning, quarterly planning, and you set goals. And then you have to select projects that your team needs to execute to achieve the goals. And so often people will go execute a project and we still don't achieve the goal because somewhere along the way we got disconnected. So I love this example because I think most people can relate to it. Have you ever had a project to launch a new website? Most of us have. And the team gets that website launched and we are done. Well, we launched a new website so that what? So that we could drive more inbound leads, so that we could increase our search engine results, so that we could do what? If we launched the website, but we didn't achieve the goal, we executed a project and we lost sight of the results. And so the main thing is that when we are giving SOPs and we are giving projects, that they always connect to the overall result and objective that we're going for. And then people have some freedom to innovate in how we go about that. Because if you said to me, I can actually get you more leads by hosting a podcast than launching a new website, then that might be the project we need to do instead of launching a website. And so that same thing that you're talking about, Cam, on the SOP side, we might not need you to click here, here, and here if we can get the result in a different way. And so, but oftentimes we just lose sight of that because we think that the first step to delegation is to delegate tasks, but that won't get you nearly as far as delegating results.
What do you think of intentionally leaving out some of those SOPs in order to kind of foster that environment? Because I've used this example in like rugby coaching all the time. I love to do it of like, hey, so what happens with this? And I kind of just leave the rules out and they go, wait, coach, but what if we go out of bounds? Good question. And we kind of go through this process where you get them to question the whole game. Do you think that's something that can translate into business? Because one of those, I love that example. But then, when it comes to it, it's like, hey, Courtney, I need us to do everything on social media. You're my new social media manager. Go. It's like, okay, what are we talking about here? Like, there's got to be some guidelines still with it. It doesn't quite translate like that. How do you make those two connect? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to be really aware of the role and the thing that you're delegating. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Michael Hyatt. He's an author and a leadership coach, but he has a book, one of my most impactful books I've ever read, called Free to Focus. And he talks about these 5 levels of delegation. And so a level 1 delegation, according to Hyatt, is do exactly what I said, exactly the way I said to do it. And that might be something that you give to a career stage 1 team member. They're very new. They're not owning a lot of results. They're executing tasks. So that's appropriate. But you get to stage 2 and you might say, I need you to do this and report back to me. Do it the way you think is best. And from there, he's got these 5 levels. The 5th level is the top level where it's, this is yours now. and I don't need to hear any more about it. 4, a rung down from that is, this is yours now, keep me in the loop. And then 3 is like, this is yours, and we're going to talk through how to execute it. So you have to be aware of what level is the team member that you're delegating to. But I think the biggest challenge that we have as leaders around delegation, aside from what we've talked about of delegating tasks instead of outcomes, is that we think of it as a one size fits all. And we tend to go, again, like one extreme or the other. We'll either completely abdicate responsibility on the whole thing without any regard for what level of person we're giving this to and how much understanding they have of what we're trying to do. And we say, this is yours now, it's off my plate, good luck. Or the other extreme, where we micromanage them to death, and they're capable of much more than a level 1 delegation. And so we have to recognize that all of these types of delegation are delegations, and we just have to be aware of what level we're delegating of work and to who, what level is this person able to accept, and then proceed accordingly. Because I know all of us have had a time where we've done one of those extremes or the other. And generally our response is, I tried to delegate that and it didn't work. It's because we weren't mindful of those two things. Who is it and what level should it be at?
That's great. And yeah, I haven't read that book. Huh? Free to Focus.
Free to
Is
Focus.
That Okay. Yeah. Add that to my ever growing list of 1,000 books.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's all about how to manage your energy and your focus. So it's productivity based, but really pulling in the energy management over just time management. So it's been really, really valuable for me and my team, and it's something that we teach in our coaching program as well.
That's awesome. So when you come into that company, and we'll go back to the SOPs on the shelf sort of thing, because I've been in those places. And how do you help shift them? Because that everybody thinks, oh man, look at all these SOPs we got. We're good. We're good. How do you help them shift that mindset into what's innovative, into that scaling of their business?
Yeah. So we teach people that there's really 4 core systems that they need to be focused on. So this is that top level: system, process, SOP. So system. So one system is your people system. Who does what and what results do they need to get? So this is a combination of an organizational chart and a results map. So you're mapping out the structure of your organization. What structure do we need? What roles do we have? What are they responsible for? And then what results do they need to achieve? And when you overlay that, you end up with every seat in the organization knowing the results that they need to own as part of their responsibilities. Then the process system is the next one. And so this is where we're helping people to look at the different processes that they have within their organization and assess them. Where are things breaking down? It's usually because there's either not visibility on what's happening, or the information that we're looking at or the way we're doing things isn't reliable, or there's no predictability built into it, or there's no flexibility built into it. So those are our 4 steps to scalability. You have to have reliable information. You have to have visibility on it. You have to then use it to predict what would happen, and then flex what you expected to happen against what's actually happened. So we have this process optimization assessment where you evaluate your processes through those lenses, and then you start to redefine and optimize those processes, but at the process level, not the SOP level. So think of like a process for onboarding a client. So there are steps that they go through. So maybe they submit their agreement that they want to be a client, and then we have them fill out an intake form. Then we have them take the COLBY assessment that I talked about earlier. Then we have them, receive their link to join our platform. Like, those are process steps. There could be an SOP for detailed directions of all the things you have to click here and there and everywhere to add them to the digital platform. But the onboarding process is just the flow of who does what and when. And so that's the level that we're talking about. So if I have a problem in my client onboarding process, it's in one of those steps, and I need to figure out what's going on here. And that's what I need to fix and optimize. And so that's where there can be innovation. We can say, well, what if we, stop sending emails through HubSpot because people think that they're spam, and we do it this other way, or, whatever. It can be whatever it needs to be. But we're not talking about detailed step by step. We're talking about flow of process. So that's the process system. We have an execution system, and we have a communication system as well. So those 4 core systems are the way that we help people get up a level on processes and out of the weeds. And when we just did a 2-day workshop on this, it was either March or June. I can't remember. I think it was June. And we had so many of our attendees say processes were the missing link. They had all these SOPs, and they were getting so lost in all the details that they realized what they were missing was that click up of flow of information, workflow, process step. And so that's the way we help people, is get these core 4 systems with the processes beneath them. And then you can decide where you need SOPs based on who you're delegating to.
What I'm envisioning a lot of colored pens on the whiteboard drawing a flow chart.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like your like a hidden skill? Is flow charting on a whiteboard?
That is something we do. We actually, so our workshops are in person, and so we have workbook. We do have colored pens and markers on the tables, and they use physical workbooks to map these things out, and then you can take it back and give it to somebody to digitize it. But one of the values of being in person in a workshop setting like that is that you're out of the whirlwind of all your personal and professional responsibilities. And so we try to keep people offline so they don't get sucked back in. And so we all of our tools that we use in the workshops are analog, paper, so erasable pens, colored markers, all that good stuff. Yep.
Yeah,
I always think about
so
that.
True.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was picturing our conference in Dallas earlier this year, and the amount of people you see on their computers, like, wow, they're getting so much work done. It's like, wait, they're not listening to anything. I can't say it's this kind of funny thing. I'm taking notes in Word, but come on, my email's there, Slack's popping up, too many distractions. Yeah. Got to keep it on paper. What I'm interested about, Courtney, is what would you say breaks these systems and processes? What are kind of like those variables, those mechanisms that, because we're painting the picture of the organization. What are the bad things on this side that can mess all this up over here that we've been talking about?
Yeah. So those 4 steps that I talked about are really pretty fundamental. So reliability is that first step. If any of this information that you're using is based on inaccurate, incomplete, or not timely information, that'll break your system down. Like, you have to have reliable information flowing through your processes and in the way that you're designing your systems. So if you've got that, we've got good, reliable information and processes flowing here. The next place it breaks down is visibility. No one can see what's happening or where something is at or that something went wrong. So we've got these reliable systems and they're designed beautifully, but we have no visibility to check if they're actually happening the way that they're supposed to. The next step is predictability. That's where we've got good information and we can see what's happening, but we're not able to use it to actually have any foresight into what we expect would happen. And then flexibility is the last step. And that's where we need to be using the information of what we predicted against what's actually happening, so that when things don't go like we planned, which is most of the time, we can flex and pivot and react and respond. But if we never predicted it's going to be pretty hard to flex. If we don't have visibility, it's going to be pretty hard to flex. So they kind of, are a pyramid where it's foundational. So a lot of people will say, well, man, we're really flexible. Maybe you're somebody who has the opposite of the systematized strength in COLBY, which would be that you are an adapter. You love to fly by the seat of your pants and figure things out and adapt. You probably have no problem with that fourth step of flexibility, but it's likely not rooted in visibility on reliable data compared to what you predicted. It's just go with the flow, see what happens, which in some scenarios can be a gift, especially in startup when we're innovating and we don't know what to expect. But when we're trying to scale, we really need this whole pyramid. So that's really where things start to break down, is across one of those four areas. And that's true in any of the four core areas of business. So finance, leadership, productivity, or people. Those are the four things that we believe you need to be focused on when you're trying to scale, not sales and marketing and product innovation, because you hopefully nailed that in startup mode. Now not that you ignore them, but you now need to turn your focus to these four core.
What do you think are some of the trimmers, is the word that comes to mind, like the early warning signs for these kind of things before things actually break?
Yeah. So, you start to have errors or, dissatisfied clients. Something is not going the way it was supposed to. And so you start to see client satisfaction goes down or efficiency rates go down. Your people start to feel burned out and overwhelmed, even if they're not working a ton of hours, or even if they should be able to handle more volume, because disruption is exhausting. And so if things go smoothly, we can handle this volume. If everything is going crazy and we have to constantly insert ourselves to fix things, we can't handle that same volume because it takes more energy. And that also comes back to how people are wired. A lot of times, once we have things systematized, so we've got that strength of systematization that helps us build that, then we need people with low quick start, people who don't like risk, change, and uncertainty, because what they're wired to do is minimize chaos and preserve what's working. And so as soon as things start to not work, those people whose job it is to maintain it get exhausted. So you will know because they will start to raise the alarm, like, I can't do this anymore. This isn't working. And so really listening to your people, whether it's your internal team or your customers, for where things are causing friction and exhaustion is usually an indication that things, either the design of the system needs to be changed, or we're not executing the way it was designed. So it's properly designed, it's not executed. Or maybe it was properly designed for a season and we've outgrown it.
I think that's such a great point, because what I keep jumping back to, especially in some of the points you were making there, is some small businesses that we've worked with that they like to hang up the this is who we are of, well, because we're small, we're flexible. And I've always thought that was so ironic, because it's really a mindset. It's a cultural thing that I think is in the government contracting business is where I've experienced it the most. As businesses grow, that they say that they lose their flexibility, like a Lockheed Martin, can't react. Well, not true. They may not want to react because they see the risk involved. How do you help a client balance that risk acceptance of stepping outside of a system to scale that's been the comfort
What's coming to mind, Dad, is I kept thinking about, we talked about the sigmoid performance curves, right? Of
Yes,
what do you do to
great.
jump to the next curve instead of crashing down and having to fix it?
Yeah. Yes, you have to be really intentional with your innovation and disruption. And so those of us who are high quick start love risk, change, and uncertainty. And we will change things or take risks or lean into uncertainty just for fun. Because why not? That's just how we're wired. And so we have to be really mindful that we don't impose disruption because we're wired for it, that we use our strength when we truly do need to disrupt something. And so we don't want to go to somebody who's high systematized and say, we need you to figure out a new way to do this. We need the innovators to figure out the new way. Mm-hmm. But we can't let them disrupt what's already working that doesn't need to be changed just because it would be kind of fun to see what it would be like. So that's part of it, is just having that awareness of ourselves. For those of us who are high quick start, we have to have self-awareness. We have to give our teams permission to hold us back from messing things up that don't need to be messed up. And we have to know that our gift comes when we disrupt something that is ready to be disrupted and needs disrupted. And then once we've got that disrupted and figured out, and we've used our people that have the adapter strength to test things and figure things out, once we've found it, we go back to our systematizers, and now it's the new system. And so it's really about knowing how to play to people's strengths and how to collaborate together, that these things are not right or wrong or good or bad. They're different and they're situational as to where they're most helpful. And that's how you do that, is by understanding who you need to play these parts and then using them at appropriate times. I would also say being careful that those innovations are built into your processes. So you probably, Otis, you probably are familiar with the after action review. I think that was a military concept, right?
Oh, yeah.
So part of so I mentioned those systems that we have. We talked about the people and the process system, the execution system, and then the communication system. So communication system, our framework for that has a built-in after action review. So we are building into our meeting and communication cadences opportunities to look back and see what's working and what's not, and what do we want to stop, start, or improve. That surfaces the places where you need to leave something alone because it's working, or go disrupt something and innovate it because it's not. So having a built-in process for seeking out those things that need to be improved is also a great way to make sure that you're doing that in the right ways, in the right places.
What do you think? I don't know. Talk about the timing there. I think when you're talking about the person, the quick start, like coming and disrupting things. I'm like, you're talking about keeping away from all the good stuff. Yeah, keep him locked out back most of the year, and then bring him in when it needs to happen, right? And that's the picture in my head. And it's a joke, of course, but at the same time, it does feel like there's a little bit of an element of like, how do you control for that timing variable? It's the same thing when I'm out coaching rugby, and I got guys who love to hit people, and we're not hitting today, and they get a little too violent. And it's like, all right, hey, settle down, bud. We're being nice today. It's like, I need that on Saturday, but I don't need it today. And it's a hard thing to try to control that and get them to understand there's a time and place for everything. What's your approach on the business side of keeping those people, locked up enough, but not so much they go crazy?
Yeah. Great question. So we use this most in a practical standpoint through project teams. So we believe in a very structured strategic planning process where you've got a long-term plan, like a 3-year vision, long-term strategy. You've got an annual plan. What are we going to do this next year to get a year closer to that vision? So what are the outcomes we need to achieve? What are the projects we're going to execute to get there? And then implementation planning. What do we need to do all throughout, every week, every quarter, throughout the year, to keep us all on the same page from a communication and rhythm standpoint? So that's where this comes into play. So you would have built into your meeting rhythms, you would surface these things that are problems, and you would, in your planning, say, this is something that needs to be fixed. So here's the project we're going to do in 2026. So if this is at a corporate level, these are like big things. We need to overhaul our client onboarding experience, or we need to expand the virtual CFO and controller services that we're offering. Like, we need to do more. There's way more out there. Those are the big types of things where we've got goals connected to our vision. We've got projects for the year. So then we say, well, who should be on this project? And so we look at our cast of characters based on their role and based on their wiring. And we're making sure that we've got the right mix of people involved in this project so that we didn't staff a project that requires a ton of innovation with a whole bunch of systematizers and no innovators, for example. And so that's part of it, is that these types of initiatives are usually projects. And then when we select a project team, we're intentional about who we put on it. Now, it could also surface as something that's not corporate level, big project. What we do is each team, each department has a quarterly planning session. So they do an after action review every quarter as a team, just in our department. What's working? What's not working? We do this at the leadership level as well. At the leadership level, we're doing it to see all those projects that we set when we did our annual strategic planning. Are they still relevant, or do we need to kick some of them out the door and swap in with a new issue that's surfaced? But at the department level, same thing. They're looking at the same thing. What did we originally plan to do? Has something surfaced that boots one of these out the door? Or do some of our team members have time built into their role to execute projects that come up? But we're assigning team members to the project based on what that project needs. And then for most people who we're kind of picking on the high quick start innovators, right? Most of our high quick start innovators, their primary role is something that uses the gift or strength of innovation. Like, they're the CEO, founder, visionary. They're responsible for the overall vision. They're responsible for big client relationships. They're responsible for things that use that natural gift. And then they join a project that needs innovation, but their day-to-day bulk of their time is likely not in things outside of their gifting. Or if it is, we got a tool for that too, to help you realign. Because when we work outside of our strengths and gifts, it's exhausting. When we work in our strengths and gifts, it's more effective and it's more fulfilling. So we want all of our team members, especially our highest level leaders who can provide the biggest returns. We want all of us to be working inside of our strengths and gifts.
Yeah, and it just reminds me of one of our clients, Kim. I can't remember who it was now, but he was his team said you have to stop coming up with good ideas during the meeting.
Okay.
Innovating. Yeah, because it was the classic bing bing. Oh, what about this? And
No,
hey,
take
that
away
was
his pen. I don't remember who
yeah,
that was, but I remember the joke of like, yeah, take away his pen and paper. You need to sit and listen. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. Go ahead.
So I was just going to say, so in that communication system, one of the tools we have is a meeting planner, and you're selecting the purpose of the meeting. And some meetings are for innovation, brainstorming, ideas. And we'll actually say, some people we don't want here, because you will kill all of our ideas before we even can surface them, because you're not wired that way. So we've got all the innovators, all the adapters, all the people who are really gifted at brainstorming and ideation in those meetings. But then when we've got a meeting where we need to start making progress and actually design a project and get something executed, we might not bring the innovators, because they'll change the idea before we can even start planning it. And so but if you don't know this about people, these things can end up causing a ton of friction and even some resentment or, struggle, because we think if we don't have a lot of self-awareness or emotional intelligence, we think everybody thinks like we do, or at least they should. And that's not how it is. So yeah, even from something like meeting planning and what are we doing, and therefore who should be involved to make it the most effective, is a great way to make sure that we get this balance of innovation and systemization in the right places.
And I think if you're the person that's always coming up with all the ideas, it's this helped me so much of like just recognizing like how to frame that conversation with people. So it's not walking down the hallway and going like, Ron, Courtney, I heard that we have this new thing here, and going through all this, and you're like, oh, I guess we're deleting all of our Facebook. We're going to this. Like it's weird that you just run with it. It's like that was weird of Cam to do. It's no, hey, I want to talk through an idea. We're just spitballing here. We're in the lab, whatever you want to call it. We're just working through all this stuff, and then we're going to leave it here until we actually want to take something and apply it, and like making that a clear separation, because otherwise people would love to run with those ideas. And if you're somebody who's just constantly spitting ideas, then they go and change something, they come back to you, you even forgot it was your idea in the first place. It's a whole mess.
Absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, it reminds me of the good idea fairy. I used to, when I was an ops guy, I used to, on our planning calendar, literally put on their good idea fairy cutoff date before we were getting ready to do things, just so the boss knew, hey, no.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's true, because there is a time when that's what we need, and then there's a time when we've got to move away from that. And so I love that.
Yeah. Well, and I can tell you what I learned is the COLBY, collimate. Damn, you said a word I couldn't spell.
Oh, conative.
Conative.
Yeah. So
there
like cognitive would be like the thinking side of your brain.
Yes.
Conative is apparently like the behavioral side of your brain.
There we go. There you go, folks. There's your,
well, that's what I learned.
$5 word for the day. Conative strength, which that's really cool. I hadn't heard that. I understand all those things. Been there, done that, worked with all those people. But I didn't know there was a strength finder for that. That's really cool. So that's what I learned today. Cam, how about you? What'd you learn?
I was gonna say, how cool is it? It's like, oh, whenever you find the system, we talk systems for almost an hour, but it's like when you find the system, it's like, oh, I've been thinking this exact way. This makes sense. It's awesome. I love that. And actually, that's how I felt also talking about like the levels of delegation. That was it for me, what I learned today. Because I think that's one of those things that like intuitively as leaders, we kind of know, but like, hey, sometimes you got to spell it out to a system. There's 5 levels. Really nice, clean system with them. I like it.
Awesome. Courtney, how about you? What'd you learn?
Yeah, I love what you just shared, Otis, about the cutoff date for the idea fairy. I think that is such a great idea, because especially when you think about strategic planning or budgeting, these are big processes that take months, and they're very iterative. But at some point, certain stages of it have to cut off so you can keep moving. And so I love that. I love that idea of a cutoff for the idea fairy.
And I want to give you the visual. So think Tinkerbell with her little wand.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Sprinkling pixie dust all over the crap that you've been working on. Yeah. Yeah, I've had that guy. Courtney, how do folks find you, learn more about what y'all got going on?
Yeah, so I would love to connect one-on-one on LinkedIn. So you can find me at Courtney De Ronde on LinkedIn. I do usually post and do some videos and things on there regularly. And then also we are at scalingleader.com for our group coaching program. So we have our next workshop coming up the first week of December in Franklin, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. And so if that's something that you're...
Cool little town.
Yes, too. It is. It's a lovely place to step out of the whirlwind. I think we talked about that a little bit at the beginning of the call, of just the value as leaders, founders, business owners, executives. We have just found it's so helpful for us and for our clients to step away from day-to-day responsibilities, to learn and to connect with others, and to actually do the work. So we have these in-person workshops so that you're actually doing the work while you're there. So you're learning and doing, rather than leaving with a big list of homework. So December 2nd and 3rd is the next in-person event in Franklin. So if Scaling Leader is something you might be interested in, you can find us at scalingleader.com.
Awesome.
What's worse, y'all? Do you think it's the good idea fairy where we're past the deadline, they keep coming and sprinkling the ideas, or the boss coming back from a conference? Which one's worse then?
I love that. That's a touche, Camden. That is. We actually, I'm funny you say that. We've actually had a lot of our Scaling Leader clients have added their other leaders to the program to come with them. Mm-hmm. for what you're saying is that it is hard to go back and try to convey that same level of excitement or to cascade the concepts that you've learned. And so we have a lot of executive teams attending together as groups so they can do the work together and not have so much of that, coming back and shocking everybody else with everything that you want to do next. They were part of it. They were there for it firsthand.
Awesome. Courtney, it has been a blast having you here today. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, Cam and Otis, for having me. It was such a great conversation. Thank you.
Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank y'all for listening to today's episode of 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. And a special thanks to our guest, Courtney De Ronde, for joining us today. Remember, you can watch photos of the show on YouTube at 10X Your Team. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to pass along to other lifelong learners in your tribe so they can enjoy it too. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. As always, that full archive episode is available at www.10xyourteam.net. Thanks again. We'll see y'all next time.